It looks like Real Madrid's roughest patch of the season is behind us, but who knows? There have been a few issues so far this season, including long-term injuries, a lack of rotation of the squad, not being compact enough defensively, and not creating enough chances in front of goal. All these issues have exacerbated bad form for players like Kylian Mbappé. But if Real Madrid plays anything like they did against Sevilla in that first half, then a lot of the concerns for Real Madrid go away. It's only fitting for Real Madrid that they put up their best performance right before they go away for holidays. But if you watch that game, there are so many reasons to be optimistic about the second half of the season. But in this video, I'll talk about the players that are linked with Real Madrid to see what is the likelihood that Real Madrid will sign some of these players, the tactical fit, and if it's a good idea for the club to pursue some of these players. I'll leave Alexander-Arnold for the end because there's some information that's come out today from Marca about the signing of Trent. First, let's talk about William Saliba. Saliba is one of the best center backs in Europe, without a shadow of a doubt. But one of the biggest hurdles with signing Saliba is that he last season signed a contract extension until 2027. But let's say he runs down his contract, which is very plausible. It could happen where Saliba decides to run down his contract, and at that time he'll be 27 years old in the year 2027. So at that age of 27, he'll be a free agent. And to me, that's probably the most likely scenario if he wants to join Real Madrid, which is for him to run down his contract until he's a free agent. Very similar to Rudiger. Rudiger was a free agent when we signed him, and he was 29 years old when he signed for Real Madrid, because Arsenal has already said very clearly that they are not going to negotiate with any club for the signing of William Saliba. But Saliba at Real Madrid makes sense for so many reasons, because he has both the physical and the technical attributes that are needed to be successful at Real Madrid. He's definitely a Champions League level quality center back. And his center back pair is Gabriel. Gabriel is the more physical one. He's the one who gets more into the duels more physically, but Saliba can play that role as well. We've seen him go against Erling Haaland and get the best out of Haaland on many occasions. But the thing is with Saliba is he's very press resistant. He's really good at making split decisions. His ball progression is second to none. This is a guy that if he comes into any club in the world, he makes them instantly better. He starts at any club in the world, and if you can get a guy like William Saliba, you try and get him. Even in 3 years, when he's 27 years old, there's going to still be plenty of time for him. Hopefully, God forbid he suffers any serious injuries. But theoretically, a guy like Saliba should be good well into his 30s. But that still leaves the question of between now and 2027, who does Real Madrid go for a center back? Because you got David Alaba, who's going to start training for the first time with the ball December 30th, which is today. Well, it's going to be tomorrow. I'm recording this the day prior. But David Alaba coming back. Eder Militao will be back next season after suffering 2 ACL injuries. So the question is, who can you bring into Real Madrid to essentially be a long-term solution? Because you have Asensio and João Martinez also suffered an ACL injury, and theoretically, João Martinez, being a very young center back, should be potentially a player who joins the first team before too long because he has a very bright future ahead of him. He's still very young. So one of the options that was floated but doesn't look like it's going to happen because of Asensio, proving to the world that he's a high-quality center back. One of those options was Laporte. It's unlikely that Laporte will come to Real Madrid because he was seen as a short-term solution because he's a little older, and we know that Real Madrid only tries to bring in younger players. Another name that was floated is Vitor Reyes from Palmeiras in Brazil as a long-term solution. Now, this is a young player that plays in the Brazilian league and is rated very highly, so another guy that Real Madrid is looking at very carefully. And Real Madrid's scouting system in Brazil is very strong. They have also Juni Calafat, the chief scout at Real Madrid, is from Brazil. But not just that, a lot of the players, Endrick, Vinicius, Rodrigo, these are guys who can easily get on the phone and convince top quality players in Brazil to join Real Madrid. Another player who's linked with Real Madrid is Castello Luquebi, who plays at Leipzig. But the 21-year-old also signed a contract extension with a $90 million release clause. And again, Real Madrid is in a position now where they're not going to be paying high transfer fees anymore. And like I said, it's very likely from now that Real Madrid will ride it out with Asensio and João Martinez going forward. Now let's look at another player who's heavily linked with Real Madrid, and that's Florian Wirtz. Wirtz, on the surface, is not the profile player that Real Madrid really needs at this very moment, if you just look at him on the surface. But Wirtz has the record for the fastest player to achieve 10 goals in the Bundesliga. He achieved that when he was 18 years old. he's really good at attacking the box. He can play at the 10, he can play anywhere in the front three, he can play right behind the striker. So in many regards, Wirtz is a very similar profile to that of Brahim Diaz, to that of Jude Bellingham, Arda Güler. So that's begs the question is, if you bring a guy like Wirtz into Real Madrid, you already have very similar profile players in the squad already. And if you have a team with Jude Bellingham, Kylian Mbappé, Vinicius Jr., how do you fit Wirtz into that and establish some sort of balance in the team? You could bring a guy like that in, and Real Madrid is known for just trying to sign the best and most elite players in Europe, regardless if they're fit or not. And then they try to find a system that works to bring all their best players into that system. But we've seen this before at Real Madrid. Let's not forget, Cristiano Ronaldo, when we actually signed him from Manchester United, he was actually a right winger. He only really started playing day in, day out as a left winger when he arrived at Real Madrid. Same thing with Gareth Bale. But when you look at Real Madrid, when we brought in Gareth Bale, we had Ozil, who was still one of the most elite players in Europe at the time. But Real Madrid made a calculated decision to sacrifice Ozil for Gareth Bale. So this very well might be a similar type of situation where Real Madrid brings on Wirtz, but sacrifices a very important player at the club. And we all know the untouchable players at the moment are Mbappe, Vinicius, Bellingham. But that doesn't mean some of the other players who have been really important they may be sacrificed for him. But the thing is, Real Madrid's ball progression issue that has arisen when Toni Kroos has left still doesn't get solved if you bring on Wirtz. Because it doesn't make sense to bring a guy like that in and have him play in a very deep position, because clearly he's one of the most elite players in the world at attacking the box and scoring goals. So I know under Carlo Ancelotti, he converted Pirlo from a 10 to a 6. He is the one who started playing Toni Kroos, who played for Germany and Brazil at the 10. He turned him into a 6 and an 8. But I don't think it's going to be the same situation in Florian Wirtz, because he's simply world-class elite at attacking the box and scoring goals. But again, there's a plethora of quality players like Wirtz in this team currently, but it does look like he's a generational player, and it might make sense for you to sacrifice somebody in the team to bring him in. And the last thing I'll say about Wirtz is that if Xabi Alonso comes to Real Madrid this summer, then unquestionably Florian Wirtz is more likely to come to Real Madrid. Another player who plays for Xabi Alonso that's linked with Real Madrid is Jeremie Frimpong. Now, Frimpong is one of the most elite fullbacks in Europe, without a question. But what he's known for more than anything is going forward. But as you know, Bayer Leverkusen plays with a back five, and he's one of those wing backs who likes attacking down the wing. So he's a very different profile than Dani Carvajal, but he's more similar than a Lucas Vázquez in the sense that Lucas Vázquez was a right winger who was then converted into a right back. So if Frimpong was to come to Real Madrid, he would look a lot different than the player that we're seeing week in, week out for Bayer Leverkusen in the Bundesliga, because now he's going to start having to defend a lot more. And from everything I've seen from Frimpong, he looks like a very solid defensive fullback. He has the pace and power, but where he's really elite is going forward. So the question then is, do you prioritize a guy like Frimpong, who seems to thrive more in systems that are a little bit more chaotic, more in transition? Or do you prioritize a guy like Trent, who doesn't have the physical abilities of a guy like Frimpong, but is a set-piece master? He can put balls into the box. I can already picture Trent Alexander-Arnold putting the balls into the back post for players like Jude Bellingham, players like Vinny. You have a whole different threat to your attack with a guy like Trent. But Frimpong brings that as well. And many Madridistas will actually argue that Frimpong is a better fit for the way Real Madrid plays. That in the final third, that it's Frimpong who's a little bit more decisive. When you look at the balance issue at Real Madrid, it's not just about recruiting a right back at Real Madrid. It's also about solving the ball progression issue. And that brings me to the final player, which is Trent Alexander-Arnold. Because if Alexander-Arnold was to come to Real Madrid, it wouldn't surprise me if he didn't play as just a right back, but also as played at the 6, which we saw him do for England in the Euros this summer. His ability on set pieces would be such an important thing for Real Madrid. Not just from corner kicks and free kicks, but his crossing into the box to actually have that threat would be truly something that changes the profile of Real Madrid's attack. Now, everybody knows that Alexander-Arnold is good friends with Jude Bellingham. And without a question, Jude is telling Alexander-Arnold, you have to come to Madrid. Especially with this generation of players. He can be part of something special. He can have multiple Champions Leagues, something no English player has done before. And according to reports, he's actually told Liverpool that he has made the decision to join Real Madrid. And this season, we've seen that his defending has improved significantly. And of course, that's going to be important. But what we've seen from practically every player who's signed to Real Madrid from other clubs, when they come to Real Madrid, whether immediately or throughout time, except for Hazard, they tend to improve drastically. So the idea of Trent coming to Real Madrid and being in that environment where the benchmark is set for you to win Champions League after Champions League, it's scary to see the heights that he can achieve. Who do you guys think is a better fit? To me, it's a coin toss between Frimpong and Trent. Who would you prioritize at right back if you were in the boardroom at Real Madrid? Make sure you guys like and subscribe because I have a lot of really exciting content coming up. Thank you all for watching. Hala Madrid.